fatal thought impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and past. I back up my actions, fact, don't ask, grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here. And now, whenever we last left off with this video, or at least this series, we had just went over the other horsemen. We went over Melissa Shields, Momo Yaoyorozu, and Tomura Shigaraki. Or, I believe it's Tenko Shimura in this timeline, since he has never met All For One. Now, with that being said, let us begin. We will pick up with Izuku Midoriya. After the events of Part 1, where his mother went crazy after having a vision about what her baby would become, she saw her baby boy, a very happy, fun-loving, innocent child, turn into nothing more than a sadistic murderer. Someone who would happily light the world on fire and watch it burn. And they wouldn't have a care in the world. They would do so just because they have the power to. Now, she then murdered her husband and attempted to take her son's life. Izuku is currently staying with Mitsuki. Now, let's pick up roughly about a couple months later with Izuku Midoriya. The young boy is wearing gloves, and he's been doing so for somewhat of a little bit of time. With the little bit of allowance Mitsuki gives both her and Bakugo, or gives him and Bakugo, my bad, he's been somewhat thinking about it. It appears that anytime he seems to touch an object, or is at least near somebody, or someone touches something that he's already had contact with, that these things and abilities start happening. These strange occurrences, violence, and all around anger and rage, they increase all around him. So, he bought a pair of gloves, and he noticed that it actually went down a bit. So that's what he thought he had to do. He thought that eventually one day he might have to wear a full-on suit to protect everyone from him. And then there was that idea in his head, being a hero. How can he be a hero with his quirk? Even he's not too sure about it sometimes. There's the fact that with his quirk, he can create flames and almost explosions. He has the ability to basically turn anything into ash with his bare hands. And this power, it's quite strange, as we do have today. Today, Midoriya is walking to school, and him and Bakugo are somewhat talking. Midoriya is unaware of the fact that he's been gaining more control, and instead of him encountering these things in his day-to-day life now, he's starting to affect things beyond himself. It's no longer just his general vicinity. In fact, somewhere else around the world right now, he is manipulating current events. And so are the other horsemen. Now, with that being said, we will have roughly 2 to 3 days later. Recently there has been a report that apparently Japan and a few more of the island nations are somewhat beginning to migrate, as you can call it. It appears that the islands, they were already moving at somewhat of a, well, slow rate towards other continents. But it seems like that steadfast picked up. Apparently, it may have something to do with the Earth's core and possible seismic activity, but it appears that Japan is on a collision course for another country. And one day it will reach its destination. So, they're going to deal with that when it arises. However, it is still quite strange. This activity should not have happened or picked up. Then again, current seismic events have been happening more often. And they've been picking up more and more. Volcanic activity, wildfires, you name it. They've been sparking out of control as of late. Along with that, there's currently the situation over in Ireland. That place, it is already, well, gone far downhill. And soon it is only going to get worse. With pestilence and, well, strange things happening to their crops, and things beyond control and disease, it seems like, well, the continent's about to be abandoned. They've already been having to spread themselves very far, trying to get away. It seems like every time they try and run from whatever this is, it doesn't work. So, every time they have to run, they have to try and split up, figure out who might be sick and who might be healthy. And usually they would either try and figure it out or at least, well, take their own things into their own hands, you could say. Now, eventually this led to the entire island being abandoned, and most people being relocated to places around Europe, Italy, and Germany. Now, with that being said, that's the major continent that most of those people from that location would have been relocated. Now, we will pick up back with Izuku, who is currently still trying to understand his abilities. And today they just got stranger. Whenever he was lying in bed, and he had a strange dream. He was dreaming of, well, a point in history. He really does enjoy the idea of it. You keep things written down. You can remember the past, you can learn from mistakes. And there is currently what he is seeing and he is witnessing. Midoriya thinks that it's just somewhat of a dream. However, it's a very historic battle. Now, he is watching some parts of the history of Japan. And he is currently watching, I want to say, I would say the samurai era, but I don't believe Japan had samurais. Or, I might be getting this confused with China, but I don't think either one. It's either neither one of them had samurais or both of them did. Yeah, somewhat along those lines. Anyways, now, as for Izuku, as he is having this dream, he is watching it. He's watching people die, and it's somewhat upsetting him. And then there is what is happening outside of his own mind. Izuku is pulled out of the air by Mitsuki, since he is crying and screaming and throwing a tantrum. Now, they ran into his room to see him floating above, well, his bed, and currently floating in their direction. This became odd. As soon as they plucked him out of the air, and Mitsuki tried to get him to wake up, wake up, wake up, he eventually did. And he was crying. However, it didn't seem like they were tears of sadness. It was more or less Izuku was happy because he finally felt peace. He felt peace in a war. There's that little sense of calm you can get. In fact, he would call it calmer than home. The feeling he got, he didn't feel scared. He didn't feel like anything could hurt him. It felt completely different from what happened with his mother, where she hurt his dad, where she tried to hurt him. It just seemed different. A world that he can finally see and tone into, that he can understand. Violence that he does not cause. With that being said, Midoriya would begin to do this for the next few years. He was shy, antisocial, and didn't really show a lot of good behavior. He stays away from people, avoids them, and usually doesn't really try and talk. In fact, the most you'll ever see him really do, other than being by himself, is usually mess around with his quirk. He'll take off his gloves sometimes, in class, and he'll start snapping his fingers. In fact, sometimes if you pay attention, you can actually see it. As soon as his fingers snap or part away from each other, there is a small explosion. Or, well, what looks like a puff of smoke, before fire just manifests. It's crazy. Especially because some other kids sometimes describe the sound as booming, as loud and chaotic. All of them usually attributing it to somewhat of a inferno. That's really the best way they can talk about it. And Izuku doesn't really care. In fact, within this amount of time, he began to give up his dream. Around the age of 10 was whenever he finally realized that he could not be a hero. Yes, he can create flames and, well, fly, but there's the fact that people don't like him. There's the fact that people usually just, well, act very aggressive. So, he gave up. He decided to be a pacifist and make sure that he can at least prevent people from being hurt, especially if it means keeping himself away from them. Now, while Izuku is doing that, there is another strange occurrence. Tonight, there is supposed to be a meteor shower, and it's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be interesting and beautiful. And quite a lot of people all around the world are interested to see it. Especially because it's supposed to be, well, quite the fireworks show, you can call it. Now, with that being said, at least I want to say under the same sky, most of the horsemen would see this. In fact, all of them would. Now, let us cut over somewhere else with another horseman. You do have Melissa Shields and her family. The people on Island, they have encountered more and more strange occurrences. Yes, they have been happening. But it seems like Melissa's able to somewhat stop some things from happening. Now, what I mean by that is, if people usually didn't have good odds against something, she could manipulate those odds. That man's arm was crushed, and he's losing quite a lot of blood. An artery in his hand has been hurt and ripped open. If we don't get him to a hospital soon or medical aid, he will bleed out and die. If Melissa wanted to, she can simply just say in her mind, no, that man won't die. He'll receive proper medical aid. And he would. In fact, she herself has begun to check on her own abilities. And tonight, her and her father are supposed to watch the fireworks. Or at least the meteor shower. Now, as they are waiting, and it began. Things all around seemed beautiful and nice. However, it all soon turned weird. As soon as it started, you could tell something was different. It wasn't that these were passing by the Earth, they were pulled into the atmosphere. Whenever these giant shining rocks, or at least giant beams across the sky, passed, they were pulled in. They were huge, and they would smash over in the surrounding countries. Parts of Europe, Asia, America, Mexico, Canada, and Russia. Major landmasses were hit, and some cities did lose quite a lot of people. Along with that, it did seem like there was also an earthquake somewhere again. And storms have been picking up a lot more. In fact, it may not have made the news with everything else going on. Heroes, villains, these weird occurrences, the earthquakes, the landmasses moving, but there was a storm. And it actually wiped out another one of those artificial islands. Now, it didn't hit Island, luckily, but still, it was worth mentioning. No one even batted an eye. All those people just poof, gone, without a single mention that they were there. It was quite strange. And now, let us cut to Shigaraki, who is around, I believe, 11 to 12 years old. Or at least let's just say 13 right now, to be good. He is currently praying, and is hoping that all these strange things will stop. Now, as he is praying, he is instructed to do something. He is instructed that he must go out and go to school. Since the church, usually whenever they were schooling the children, that was all fine, that was all good. However, the place they are currently staying, it only works as a church and a place for them to sleep. They cannot afford schooling, so the kids have to go to public schools. And even though most of them are somewhat in the same schools, there are a few stragglers. They're either full on a quota for that grade, or simply just younger. Now, with that, Shigaraki is running to school, and he is currently trying to think. With his strange quirk, kinda, question mark, he might be able to be a hero. Let's see. Within the scientific field, yada yada yada, viruses to combat viruses, there's a whole thing about it. With his quirk, he might be able to be a doctor. However, medical school could be very expensive. So he can try and learn. Sure, he would go through some trouble and trial and error, but yeah, he'd eventually get there. Making viruses, though, that's the dangerous part. So his school has somewhat set him up with a doctor that he can meet after school. They can start helping him learn more and more, and help develop these strange diseases to combat other diseases. Now, with that, Shigaraki was not paying attention, and today, he finds himself in quite a bit of danger, as he runs into the crosswalk. After he does so, this is whenever a truck that was driving down the street hits him. Now, Shigaraki, he was completely caught off guard. In fact, quite a lot of people who saw the incident expected that the boy died. However, it was simply just the opposite. Shigaraki discovered exactly how durable he is. The truck hit him, and it should have sent him flying. However, that was just it. As soon as he was hit by this truck, he had it wrap around his body. And Shigaraki didn't even realize what was going on until he already noticed he couldn't walk forwards. Now, with that being said, he was taken to the doctor instead of going to school. And it was quite odd. His quirk, as they believe it to be, they didn't really expect it to manifest or change. The boy was categorized as quirkless, correct? Strange. Or no, his mutation doesn't give him a joint. But how is he this durable? Not even a lot of pro heroes that they've seen can survive that. And this is just a child. Interesting. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. And I'm aware that my voice does sound a bit different. It's just that I have a sore throat.